Hey, coming up, we're going to be talking about whether or not you should always rely on Amazon FBA warehousing and fulfillment solutions, or whether or not you should consider having your own warehouse or using third-party warehousing. And then we're also going to share some of the expert advice that Liron recently heard at a conference, all coming up in this episode of the Amazon Seller Podcast.
This is the Amazon Seller Podcast, hosted by multi-million-dollar Amazon sellers helping you launch your private label business to the next level. Find us on amazingfreedom.com or subscribe to this podcast on iTunes and YouTube.
All right, so in this episode of the Amazon Seller Podcast, we are going to be talking about Andy's new warehouse space, something exciting going on in Andy's Amazon business, what this means for him, why is he getting warehouse space when right now he basically sells everything out of his home or just uses FBA, right? So what are the benefits? What is he thinking? Is this going to be a good decision for him or not? And is this something that you might consider having your own warehouse in the future or using third-party warehouses? We'll talk all about that coming up. We're also going to talk about a recent conference that Liron attended, the Capitalism Conference. He was able to listen to some really dynamic, successful entrepreneurs, a lot of entrepreneurs that come from the e-commerce space and are now multimillionaires, billionaires, some of them selling brands for tens of millions, right? Tens of millions of dollars. These are the opportunities that we have, and most of them being built on Amazon and maybe in conjunction with their own website. But this is the opportunities that we have building a brand and what we're going to talk about in this episode of the podcast. So Andy, I want to start off talking about kind of some recent exciting stuff in your own business, and that is that you are leasing your own warehouse space. Why don't you tell us how this came about, why you think this is going to be beneficial for your business, and what you kind of think the outlook of storage and fulfillment is in the e-commerce Amazon space over the next, let's say over the next couple years, right?
Sure. So if you know my story, if you're listening to this, I started part-time. I was doing all of my prepping and packing out of a little office. It was probably about 8 feet by 8 feet. That's how wide it was.
That's a closet.
Yeah, it basically was a closet. And I was thrilled, obviously, that Amazon had fulfillment centers, and I could ship it in. But that's what I was operating out of. And I always envisioned, once I moved into private label, that I would never have a warehouse space. And so, as I've progressed and as I've grown, that was always the goal. However, I just started looking at my numbers about 3 or 4 months ago, which, we always talk about, you need to know your numbers. There's a lot of sellers in this business that don't know their numbers, right? They have really good sales velocity, but they don't necessarily know, if they're profitable or if they're losing money. So you really have to pay attention to your numbers. Because I started looking at my numbers, I realized the amount of money that I was spending in third-party fulfillment third-party prep and pack fees. So I was using some third-party centers, have my product shipped, from overseas to these centers, and then have certain items bundled or labeled. As I started looking at the storage fees, so I do store some of my product at third-party fulfillment warehouses because their storage fees are a little lower than what Amazon charges.
Andy, let me stop you right there because I have a question about this for maybe some of our listeners, right? So a lot of people don't really understand that, you can bring a product from China and the whole, logistics that's involved, right? How do you get it from China to the port to maybe a third-party warehouse or right to Amazon? Can you kind of go over, as you're talking about that, your decision in using these third-party centers? You're saying you're bundling and you're maybe stickering and labeling some stuff, but what are the advantages of doing that from sending it to your home? I think there's some obvious advantages there, or just sending it right to Amazon.
Yeah, so a couple of things you want to think about. If it's a new supplier or you're just starting out as a supplier, generally if you use a third-party warehouse, it can kind of be like a second inspection. So they're going to be able to go through your products and look at them a little closer than maybe the inspection company did in China. And so, sometimes your products, like when they're in the container, if you're just going to ship it into Amazon, which that is an option, and there are a lot of sellers that do this, Liron does this, I have not done this yet because I'm a little more worried. It takes a lot more work working with your supplier, and LeRon's put in that work to be able to ship it direct to Amazon.
And there's storage benefits as well, though, right? Like if
Correct. And so that's what I was just getting to there. If you send it into Amazon, right? And as we grow, we know that the worst thing that can happen to us is we go out of stock, right? And so you're always working that supply chain. Ultimately, I want to have a 6-month supply in my own warehouse at all times, because I never want to play that game where I'm trying to, where I'm going out of stock, because when you go out of stock, it just hurts you. You lose revenue, you lose a little bit of rank. And so by having a warehouse, looking at my numbers, I realized that I was spending over $20,000 in storage fees, as well as prep and pack fees, sending my products in. And that's not including the Amazon storage fees, which we know when it comes to October, November, and December, those are tripled, sometimes quadrupled of what they are the other months.
I wanted to talk about that too. So, some people might not be aware of that, but October, November, December, as you just said, much higher storage fees at Amazon. And so the difficulty there is, especially now that they've added October, it didn't always used to be October, is that October historically has kind of been that month to beef up your inventory in preparation for November and December, right? You use October to really fill up the warehouse, but now, some people's October storage costs were the highest cost.
Absolutely. And let's not be like a wet blanket, because let's say, again, how amazing it is that we can send our stuff into Amazon, number one, and their fees overall are still really low, right? But it's about being a smarter business. Obviously, I want to, my margin and my ROI on my business, I want to increase it as much as possible. And so the convenience of Amazon is absolutely amazing. The fulfillment fees and their storage fees are still pennies. But as Amazon grows too, they realize they have to make money, right? So they've been allowing us to store, tons of inventory at their warehouse, and they've been charging us pennies, right? And I'm, thinking ahead that if I'm Amazon, eventually they're going to have to raise those fees on us. And so to make a preemptive move on my part, that's why I'm getting a 12,000 square foot warehouse. It's going to save me again on my prep and pack fees, on my storage fees, as well as now I can have a 6-month supply in October, in November and December, and I'm not going to be spending $15,000 a month. I have a lot of inventory in at Amazon. I'll be getting that basically for free. And so that's, for me, that's what I'm super excited about. It's going to add a lot more revenue to my bottom line. And at the end of the day, thinking about your business, thinking ahead, it just makes sense if you can have your own warehouse space to be able to bring down those storage fees, especially in October, November, December.
One of the things Amazon is doing right now is you can tell that the signals are clear that they want people to do this, because they're actually offering a promotion right now of 60% off your referral fees if you offer seller fulfilled Prime, right? Which means you're shipping direct from your warehouse to the customer, but still offering that Prime, 2-day shipping. And they're actually giving you a 60% reduction. So they're willing to take a big hit on their fees because they want people to, they want to give incentive to people to adopt this strategy. So definitely something that I'm incorporating in my business also, in my plan for 2018, is to store more products in the U.S. Because not only, like Andy mentioned, you have the cost of the opportunity cost, right? The loss of being out of stock, but also, coming back in and maybe being on page 3 and then having to spend more money on sort of launch and rank strategies to get your product back to page 1. So it's not only the lost revenue, but it's also spending additional marketing dollars towards bringing your product back to page 1. And so definitely, whatever you do, you want to make sure that you're keeping more stock in the US, I think, in 2018, and whether you decide to, store it in a third-party warehouse, your own warehouse at Amazon, you want to keep more stock. But it doesn't make sense to use a third-party warehouse space or your own warehouse because, the fees do go up. I think in October, I paid like $12,000 or something, and I think maybe even more in November for storage fees. So they really do go up a lot in the fourth quarter, and all sellers kind of deal with going out of stock, and we're really losing revenue. So.
And
Here's
Liran,
the great thing about my warehouse that I'm getting, again, it's 12,000 square feet, but we also have access to another 40,000 square feet. And what's awesome, it's in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. It is within a day's drive of 80% of the country's population. And so when I'm looking at seller fulfill prime for some of my products, and I do seller fulfill some of my products, right there, I'm golden because I can get to 80% of the population within a day's drive, and my shipping costs on those items are going to be a lot lower. And like Liran says, they're incentivizing me. I save 60% on my referral fees.
But you're not doing the deliveries yourself, right, Andy?
I might, some of them that are close.
So Andy, let's talk about this, because we often tell a lot of people in the Amazing Freedom Facebook group, on our lives in the Inner Circle group, that one of the benefits of Amazon is the convenience of FBA. You already touched on this. So what would you say to someone that's kind of newer to this, hasn't launched a private label product, and might be thinking now, wow, do I really need my own warehouse space? You say it is an advantage, but if you're just starting off, what's kind of your take on that for a newer private label seller? What should their outlook and their mindset be when it comes to all these storage concerns and warehouse and fulfillment and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely not. You're just starting out. You do not need to worry about that. We're selling millions of dollars. We've been in the game. I've been in this game now for going on 5 years. And so I've progressed my way to a warehouse. I'm 5 years into selling on Amazon. That's why now I'm getting a warehouse. Up to this point, really up to about 3 or 4 months ago, I had no plans to get a warehouse. And so, as you're just starting out, as you're building, that is not something you need to worry about. Amazon, their fulfillment centers, their warehouses are awesome. And they're more than cost effective when you're selling your products.
Or third-party options, right, of these other fulfillment centers or just storage companies that might not be Amazon, but are good options, might be something that you can scale up to in between or use long-term as well. Liran, I know you're talking about it, but I don't think you have plans for yourself of getting your own warehouse space as of right now. So for you, using a third party might be that solution, right?
Yeah, definitely. I don't have plans, especially I'm in New York, so for whatever
high cost, right?
Yeah, for whatever Andy's paying for a warehouse, I'd have to multiply it by like 150.
What do you mean? Liran's going to be sending all his stuff to my warehouse.
Well, right. So
I'm going to take care of him.
Right. So you get good partnerships. You work with good third-party centers. It all works out. So
yeah, and let's talk about that again, because we talk about partnerships a lot. This warehouse I'm getting is with another Amazon seller, Steve Peterson. He has a podcast as well, E-commerce Momentum, which is awesome. And so that's another reason why I'm doing this with him. So now when I go in there and I work 2 or 3 days a week, there's going to be a little bit of synergy there, with what he's doing with his business. And so, so it just makes sense, right? Again, it goes back to networking. It goes back to investing in yourself. And when you do that, right, these kind of opportunities pop up.
I do like this. I think there are a lot of opportunities to reduce costs, as Andy already mentioned, his storage and some of his fulfillment fees with getting your own warehouse space or using third-party centers. I think Amazon FBA is an amazing solution, but I also think that, as Andy said, if you're kind of thinking forward and trying to make the most business sense for yourself, some of these solutions are really going to be valuable, especially for those listening who are maybe starting to ramp up their private label business. Maybe you are starting to get some success with products and you're starting to bring more products over. And going out of stock, we already mentioned this, is a concern. It's a good concern, but it is big. Liran, I know you went out of stock kind of a few times this year, unfortunately, right? It was kind of one of the hardships of your business this year was your products did so well that you were going out of stock. And if you had more warehouse space, if you maybe brought more products over, you might be able to get that a little bit better, right?
Yeah, I mean, the challenge is that, I had a new brand that I launched like the end of December last year. So really a new brand. I launched initially one product and it did very well, better than expected. And so I placed a reorder, but by the time I got that reorder, this product takes about, 45, 50 days to make. and then another, 25 days to bring my boat over to Amazon. So you're looking at like 3 months. So, by the time I realized, like in the first, month or so, hey, it's selling well, I want to order more. And I started off with 500 units, right? Because you don't know when you launch a product how well it's necessarily going to do, despite, despite having the knowledge that, yeah, hopefully I'm launching a good product, but you don't know if you're going to run into more quality issues or, what all the things that are going to come up.
And that's probably good advice for those listening, right? Is not to, it's one thing to be confident with the process and the formula that we talk about, but not to overreach yourself with that first order, right? Before it's kind of proven.
Yeah. And I think it depends on the cost. This is a product, that, all in is about $20. So it's like a $10,000 order for 500 units. If it was, $3 a unit, maybe I would have gotten 1,000 or 2,000 units, but more expensive product. So, first order, 10 grand, you probably don't want to do more than that, right? You want to be between 3 and 10, right? So I went out of stock, ordered it again, and it did really well. And again, sold out much faster because of some seasonality that it has. It sold out much faster again. I think I was out of stock again, and I was able to get it in for Q4 and selling really well. And I already have that order in for the first quarter because now I know. And in the meantime, I launched a couple other products within the brand. And one of them also sold out faster than I was able to get more products in.
And
so.
Right, these are the problems that you have when you're an Amazon master. Right?
Well, these are good problems to have, yes. And, it's part of the business, especially on new products when, you as much as I have the confidence to say, yes, I know what I'm doing on Amazon, I also don't want to be stupid by putting in a bunch of money into something where I'm not 100% sure.
Well, and there's a cash flow aspect to it, right? Because if you tie up your cash flow with this product that, potentially doesn't do as well as you were hoping, then not only do you have this inventory, but your cash, you spend a lot of cash on that, and that might take away from your next launch or your a reorder on another product, right?
Replenishing the products that are consistent, good sellers. And especially, if you're talking about like getting into like June, July, you're thinking about your fourth quarter orders, you need a whole bunch of capital. I'm sure if you're listening to this right now, probably that summertime is like a cash crunch time, right? Because you're probably putting in a lot of money into inventory and you're really waiting until like sometime in November, December to really recover it. So, cash flow is an issue when you're trying to not only replenish your existing products, but like all great entrepreneurs that I know that are building Amazon business are constantly launching new products. And
hey, it's all comes down to the money though, right? I mean, it's true. If you have more money to work with, obviously it makes it a little bit easier as far as logistics. But even people with a lot of money, if they're launching a lot of products, they have the same problems. It's just at a bigger scale, and maybe it's a bigger headache then even, right?
Yeah, sometimes, there's a phrase that's more money, more problems.
There is a phrase like that. Who said more money, more problems? Someone said that.
Yeah, exactly. But, so yeah, when you're just when you're dealing in seven figures, you're just dealing with bigger seven-figure, products. But, again, better to deal with that. Then I'd rather go out of stock on my first product than bring too many or get stuck.
And Liran, one of the big concerns is people, you see this in different groups and discussion that a lot of people are like, if you go out of stock in your first order, you'll never be able to recover your rank. What's been your experience on that? Because I know that you have gone out of stock in your first products when they do well. Have you been able to recover?
That's what I call baloney.
A myth?
Baloney, it's not true. No, I've gone out of stock on products and I'm always able to recover. Even if after going out of stock for 2-3 months, if I was on page 1, then maybe I'm on page 3 or 4, and then I do kind of like a mini launch to bring that product back. I will probably ramp up sponsored products to a bigger spend and get it going again. But I haven't had a problem with going out of stock. Ideally, you don't go out of stock because you if I go out of stock for a week or two, I might not lose any position. But if I go out of stock for a couple of months, then yeah, I probably lose some position in my ranking, and it might take me some marketing dollars to bring it back. But I haven't had a problem where I haven't been able to recover. Although I've heard some similar stories, but it hasn't happened to me.
Awesome. Well, hey, I think this is an awesome lead into your recent conference. Speaking of people with seven-figure problems, right?
Mhm.
You recently attended the Capitalism Conference in Texas. You were able to really connect with a lot of big players in the e-commerce space, in the entrepreneur space, some multimillionaires, some billionaires you talked to. So it was really cool to kind of see your journey there this past week. And I know you learned a lot of information. We're able to connect with a lot of really intelligent people. Maybe you could go over some of the speakers, that really stood out to you, some of the messages that they had, and how those messages could be applied to e-commerce, to our Amazon businesses, and helping to really scale. Because a lot of it, I think, was how to go bigger, right? I think a lot of these people are trying to double, triple, 10 times their business always, and they're big players. So maybe talk about what you were able to glean from that.
Yeah, so a few kind of points on this conference. So this was a capitalism conference put on by Ryan Moran, really smart guy, entrepreneur. He's got physical products businesses, he's got investments, very smart guy. And I initially wasn't sure that I was going to go to this conference. I looked at the speakers and some really great names like Damon John from Shark Tank, Ezra Firestone.
But it wasn't an Amazon specific conference, which typically are what you try to, kind of
Yeah.
stay with, right?
Right. So I would say about 60, 70% of the audience was probably Amazon sellers or e-commerce sellers. There were people from, who had brick and mortar stores. There were people who had, real estate businesses, people who were trading cryptocurrencies. I mean, all bunch of different businesses. And when I initially looked, I saw the speaker list and I'm like, wow, that's like a really good speaker list. Typically you kind of go for the networking, but when I looked at the speaker list, I was very interested in going, but got in set up. I was like, do I really want to travel like again another time this year? I've been traveling like every single month this year, and and kind of like last minute, I posted in a kind of a group that I'm part of. Like, does anybody know if somebody has a ticket? Because the prices have gone up from the early bird price, and it happens to be somebody I know couldn't make it, and told me, and I bought their early bird ticket. So I'm really glad that I went. And one thing I'll say is I've never regretted going to an event, and so you should put on your list for 2018. If you have no plans right now to go to any events, put on your list to do something, one or two events during the year. I've never regretted going to an event because of the networking and because of what you can learn. So I'd love to talk a little bit about the speakers. One of the couple of points, one of the themes of this for me also has been that your network is your net worth. And so, when you think about that, why is your network your net worth? And the reason is, we've all heard, you are the 5 people who you hang out with most, right? And why is your network your net worth? Because for me, the success of my business has really been about the people I get to talk to and network with, right? I met Andy, and that has elevated my business a tremendous amount, right? And you and what you do for us and what in terms of using things like ClickFunnels, right? And things that I didn't know. And then meeting people at masterminds and learning about things like licensing and things that I never would have known about if it wasn't for and patenting my product, right? If it wasn't for meeting people. So I can directly relate meeting people and learning, going to events to the success of my business. And one of the messages that Ryan first kind of spoke about at the opening of the event was that, we all have goals and we all know kind of where we want to go in our business. And maybe your goal is to do, $1 million in sales, right? But what his message was, for the next 3 days, kind of forget about any rationale to it. But for the next 3 days of this conference, just play with the idea of whatever that goal is, 10x it, right? So you're not sitting, and you're sitting in a room full of people that are very, very successful. I also wouldn't take that as a intimidation point. I would go even if I was doing 100,000, right? Because you want to hang out with people that can elevate you, not who can bring you down. So, it was kind of like this realization that, why is my goal 3 or 4 million in my business? Why is my goal 5 million? Why can't it be 10 million, right? For my business. So, I think kind of expanding your mindset.
And Liron, I think Grant Cardone is really one of the ones that has done the 10X and really gotten it out there. And his thought process is, let's say your goal is 2 million, but the 10X that and you're 20 million. And, let's say you shoot for 20 million and then you end up with only 10 million, maybe you didn't end up 10 timesing it, but you ended up 5 timesing it because you're doing what you need to do to try to get towards that 10 times, and kind of thinking bigger, because most of us think too small.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely think, myself included, most of us think too small. And whether you're doing 100,000 or 500,000 or 3 million, right? Most of us think too small. And so it's expanding your mind to the possibilities of, okay, well, if my goal was 10 million, what would that look like? How many products would I need to have? How many sales, what would I need to be doing in the fourth quarter, right? Let's say if that's your biggest season, and would I need to do the rest of the year, and what steps would I need to take in my business? Would I need to focus on outside traffic? Outside of Amazon, would I need to think about my own website? Would I need to think about maybe trying to get my products in some retail stores? Like what would it need to look like? How many products would I need to launch? How much would my current products need to sell? And kind of work out a strategy. So so I'd like to talk about some of the speakers. So the first speaker opening the show, and he was kind of a favorite because I heard that Jeff Hoffman, he spoke the first year. This was the third year of the show, and people loved him, so they brought him back. And Jeff Hoffman was one of the original founders of Priceline.com. So he's a billionaire. I actually got to sit next to him at dinner one night, so it was pretty interesting. And he's doing some amazing things around the world in terms of like charitable causes and what he's doing with his time. So it's
hey, I heard he told you his secrets of how to become a billionaire, and so I'm interested to see in 5 years. You're going to be there, right?
You don't know this, but I'm recording this from Bora Bora right now.
Oh, okay. I can.
The secrets. So some of the things that he spoke about was really about growing a team, right? And how you can't really do it all yourself, that you really need to focus on the one or two things that you're really good at, and then focus on how to outsource and build a team around the things that you are not excellent at doing it, and then giving those people the leeway and the giving them the resources they need to be able to do those things. And whether that means hiring somebody, to work with you, or whether that means to hire a virtual assistant, right? I know you, Nate, you've hired over 40 VAs in the last year.
Yeah, 50, 55, I think. And,
right?
we did an episode, an Amazon Seller Podcast episode, I think just a couple before this one, that talk about the benefits of hiring a virtual assistant and some of the resources that we think are good to start off. So if you haven't listened to that, definitely recommend searching for Amazing Freedom virtual assistants, and it probably will come up.
Yeah, and so there's no way we in our business and in your business would be able to accomplish, right, all the things that we've done this year if it wasn't for those virtual assistants, right? If it wasn't for hiring and building teams. So, he said you should focus on the one or two things that you're good at and free yourself up to focus on your next breakthrough, right? So for me, when I think about my Amazon business, I've been too focused on just Amazon, right? I haven't done enough, I think, of I've done some Facebook ads and a little bit with funnels and things like that, but I really haven't done enough to really build my email list, right? And if you're listening to this, maybe that's you also, right? In terms of building out your email list, building out an audience, building out your social media. Maybe it's building a website and sending traffic to a Shopify site, right? And really focus on the next big breakthrough in your business, because I've kind of figured out Amazon, right, and how to make that work, but I haven't really figured out, my, exact external traffic strategies, right? So for me, that's like my next breakthrough, right? Going to building out the social media aspect and the following, and less just reliance on traffic from within Amazon to build my brands.
And some of that might not be your strength, though. And so the message of Jeff Hoffman would be to still focus on your strength and that breakthrough, but then maybe outsource what you need to get to that breakthrough, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, breakthrough could be sort of like high level strategy, and then outsourcing could be either training someone, right? It kind of depends. If you need a very high level thing, you're either going to pay more money and outsource it, or you might buy somebody a course, right? And tell them, go through this course, learn these strategies, and go implement this, right? Because I don't have the time or really want to focus on this, but that's going to be your role, right? I'm going to give you a Facebook ads course, and I want you to master it. And then I want you to work on, building my Messenger chatbot audience list, right? Because that's kind of a good thing to focus on right now. So I thought that was a really good message. Russell Brunson's book, right? So Russell Brunson, founder of ClickFunnels, they have $100 million business that he built basically It's a pretty amazing story because he had his own kind of selling supplements and things like that. And then he had a guy, I think his partner Todd, I think was his name, who approached him about building this software. And he partnered up with him, and he was kind of like the coder sort of behind this idea. And he literally was able to build this $100 million business because, and not take any funding or anything. He says he still gets approached all the time for like capital. And he says how he likes to, have people, they'll take him out to lunch or whatever, just to entertain, kind of see what they want to offer. But he turns it down because he doesn't need it. And the reason he doesn't need it is because he's figured out a way to take people through a funnel and through ads on Facebook and make it that he's at least breaking even, so we can infinitely scale those ads. And so one of the biggest sort of messages from Russell was, I think this is a quote. I think he was quoting Jay Abraham, which coincidentally is Damon John's like mentor also, and who quoted him saying, "Whoever can spend the most money to acquire a customer wins," right? Which makes sense, right? Because if I have a product and you have a product and I'm willing to spend $100,000 with ads on that product and you can only spend 1,000, right? I'm always going to win. I'm always going to get more customers, right? So Russell was basically talking about the idea of why using funnels, why take people through, buying one product and then have a potential like upsell and a downsell and some offers, because instead of, where he used to sell a supplement, just offer somebody a $49 product and that was it. Now he can take them and offer them first a cheaper product, then offer them an upsell for the 49, then offer them like the 3-pack of the product, right? And just get a bigger average order cart value, right? And he was kind of comparing sending people to your website is like throwing them into a brick wall, right? Just like boom, right? Like he was like, here's everything I have, brick wall, versus like targeting like a specific offer to a targeted audience where you can take them through a funnel. So that's definitely something I want to implement.
And so you can use that in conjunction with Facebook ads, with maybe Shopify if you work on building out your website and using some kind of funnels. But you can use these different methods to, in addition to Amazon, build out these other funnels and just ways to increase your revenue basically. But one of the big benefits when you're talking about this is that you're also building up an email list and a customer base, something that you can't necessarily do easily with Amazon. There's some ways to kind of do it, but not as easily as kind of creating these funnels and driving traffic that way. And so the big benefit is, and we talk about this all the time, one of our goals is to build brands. And, if you one day go to sell a brand, and I think we're going to talk about a big brand that was there that's looking to sell, is that if you have this email list in addition in this customer base, it really does increase the value of your private label business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, if you're only relying on one channel, it's always going to keep your value at X, right? But if you now have multiple channels, right, you have a website and you have an email list and you're selling on Amazon. And I would consider your email list to be an asset, right? Because when you're selling your business, you say, okay, we also have 5,000 people on our email list. That's an asset that has value, right? Because when you send out an email to 5,000 people, 30% are going to open it, a certain amount of people are going to buy, and that's worth money. So I would say at the very least, if you are selling on Amazon, at the very least, you should be sending people to some kind of funnel where you offer like a coupon code or something, right? You build your list, because now you've spent money to acquire an email. You haven't just sent the traffic to Amazon where you just spent the money and you'll never be able to communicate with that person again, right? Whereas you spend the money, you acquire something for it, and then you can continuously market to that person where you may not have to spend as much on ads in the future, or you're building up a list. So, I thought it was very powerful. He went through some e-commerce funnels that are, crushing it. And there's lots of ways you can actually incorporate that. I know through ClickFunnels, you can actually hook up Stripe, where you can actually take the money on ClickFunnels and use like ShipStation to have FBA fulfill your orders. There's other methods people are doing also. You could do a free plus shipping model where you offer like a free product, right, that you drop ship from like AliExpress, and then you upsell your product from Amazon, right? And again, that could cost you $6, $7, $8 to acquire that customer with the ad plus the AliExpress product. But then you have this upsell where you have potential to sell your product and acquire a new customer, right? So message is, whoever can spend the most money to acquire a customer wins. Ezra Firestone spoke. So Ezra Firestone, his main focus is not specifically Amazon, although he sells his brands and products on Amazon too. but his main focus is mostly Shopify based and Facebook ads. One of the things that he spoke about that he's really sort of focused right now is on building Facebook Messenger audiences. And so if you're not familiar, you've probably seen this. You're getting marketed to through these chat bots where you can now, let's say, make a post and say comment, deal to get 20% off. You comment, and then you get, hey, thanks for the deal. Do you want the coupon code now? And then the person has like 2 boxes, yes and no, and you're using this this bot to communicate with them. But anytime somebody comments and starts that, they become a subscriber to your Messenger list, and you can market to them through this like platform. One of the sites is ManyChat. There's a few out there. So the big benefit of that is that the open rates right now on Messenger are like almost 100%, versus email open rates are like at 30%. One of the things that he said was that in the next 12 months probably, and then in about a year from now, Facebook will probably charge you to send out a message to that audience list. So right now is a great time, if you haven't started to build that, it's a great time to start building that audience. It's pretty simple through ManyChat to kind of create some sequences.
Right. If you want to see an example of this, you can actually go to amazingfreedom.com/chat, and it will allow you to chat with our Facebook page, and we'll give you some resources. We'll tell you about some free training material you can look at, and our podcast and stuff. So just go to that. Go to amazingfreedom.com/chat. You can see an example of the kind of thing that you can build with that. And there's a lot of possibilities of what you can do. But you can use it for all kinds of things. But just, one of the benefits is building out this kind of e-commerce list to help build your private label brand. So I think that's really cool to see. So that's a lot of good information there.
I'll give you one more. Another speaker was Hal Elrod. So Hal Elrod, you might have read his book or are familiar with. He's got a book called The Morning Miracle, but this was kind of more of an inspirational talk, but it was really, really good. Basically, Hal, his life changed at like age 20. He had a terrible car accident. He had to have like a metal plate in his leg, and his life kind of changed and realizing what's important in life. But then last year he actually had like cancer and went through like this terrible experience. And he kind of spoke about really his Morning Miracle. His book is really all about kind of taking time every day in the morning to focus on what's important for the day, whether it's writing in your journal, or reading or learning. But really focusing on what's important to you, and kind of like a very inspirational message of what's really important in life and what you want to focus on. So he's got a book. They actually got a copy of it there called The Morning Miracle. So I'm gonna read that. But I'd heard of him before, and I'd love to implement his Morning Miracle. I'm more of a night person, so it'd be interesting to see if I can.
Right. Me too. I think we're on the same page there. But It's good. It's that mindset, right? And it kind of goes back to the very first thing you said about 10 times in your business or thinking bigger. And it kind of goes with that, right? To get in a positive mindset and to really focus on what's important so that you can get to those breakthroughs, so that you can find more satisfaction in what you're doing. But I think it all ties together really well. So that's awesome to hear. One thing I did want to mention is that we have a lot of really cool opportunities going on with our training right now. If you go to amazingfreedom.com/early, you can get on the early notification list for the next time that our main private label training does open up, which is only available for limited times throughout the year, usually open about twice a year and for a short period of time. So if you're interested in getting more information on that, go to amazingfreedom.com/early. Leron, any kind of side notes you want to say about that?
Yeah, so we're all this kind of ties in, right, to building a brand. A lot of the messages were all related, right? Building a team and building a business and building a brand. And I think at least for us, we think that right now, I was talking to a real estate guy who had like 300 apartments. He was like a developer, and he's like, the reason why I came here and I knew there was a lot of e-commerce people here is because, and I brought my daughter. He brought his daughter who's just going to college. It's because like I'm making money, but I know there's a better way without having to go out to apartments and manage them and build them and do all this stuff. I know there's a better way. And what I want my daughter to go into, doing a business that's on the internet as opposed to what I'm doing, right? Which is I'm making money, but it's harder. And so, I think the message is that for us, we think that building a brand on Amazon is one of the best opportunities, that we're in this golden era right now where e-commerce is only still 10 or 11% of total retail sales. And that number is only going up every single year. Every single year, Q4 is getting better for online retailers and more difficult for brick and mortar stores, right? And big retailers that are stores. So, I was able to meet some amazing brand owners. One guy I was sitting with, talking next to me, has a product that sells 1,000 units a day at $20. And his business, he told me, he's got some other products, but he's looking to sell for $20 million. Earlier today, somebody sent me a message on a chat, websiteclosers.com. You can probably go check it out. There's a listing right now. It might still be up probably when this podcast airs, but there's a listing right now for a supplement brand on Amazon. They're asking, it's producing $14 million a year in revenue, and they're asking $73 million. So what I think is that right now is the best opportunity to build a brand and maybe go for an exit in 2, 3, 4 years and be able to cash out for 7 or 8 figures. And that's our goal in our business, and maybe take that and build another brand. But the opportunity is there right now to build your own brand. And if that's something that you want to do, then I think our training is a great place to do that. You can't do that in any other business model on Amazon. You're not going to sell your arbitrage business for anything like that, if anything at all. You're not going to sell your wholesale business for anything close to the multiples that people are getting for building your own brand. So for me, it was super inspiring to go out, think about not just doubling my business, but 10xing my business, and then figuring out an exit strategy over the next 2 or 3 years.
Awesome. If that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what is going to. The opportunities that we have. And listen, Liran and Andy are two of the smartest Amazon sellers in the e-commerce space. They are constantly looking to expand their own businesses, but then also bring it back to the Amazing Freedom community and further. So definitely want to encourage you to join the Amazing Freedom group if you have not yet. You can go to amazingfreedom.com/Facebook. Check us out on YouTube. We're producing more and more content on YouTube that'll just be value for your business, hopefully. And then if you have questions, reach out to us. Like I already gave that link, amazingfreedom.com/chat. We do check that. So you'll get sent to a bot essentially that will give you some really cool information, but then you can ask questions and we check that out too. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us today. We had a fun time bringing you this content. Hopefully you found it valuable and informative. If you have not yet, we highly recommend that you go to amazingfreedom.com/Facebook and join our free public group where we drop videos like this all the time. We do Ask Me Anythings. We do giveaways for our magic image service, all kinds of great stuff within that group at amazingfreedom.com/Facebook. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we certainly appreciate a comment if you found this helpful or not. If you did not enjoy it, let us know right there in the comments. If you found it helpful, we appreciate letting us know as well. And then hit that like button or that thumbs up. That helps us out as well. We'll catch you on the next episode of the Amazon Seller Podcast.
You've been listening to the Amazon Seller Podcast. Make sure to subscribe and join us next time for another look at how to dominate the Amazon marketplace.